From the capital city of Charleston, West Virginia, this is Inside West Virginia Politics with Mark Curtis. Inside West Virginia Politics is brought to you by AARP West Virginia, your ally for real possibilities in the Mountain State.
Well, happy weekend, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Inside West Virginia Politics. I'm your host, Mark Curtis. We're going to be talking about a couple of big Supreme Court decisions that happened last week. Joining me right now is Andrew Snyder. He's Executive Director of Fairness West Virginia. Great to have you on the program.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Well, we had a huge ruling, a 6-3 ruling, saying that people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender could not be discriminated against in the workplace, could not be fired for their identity. Your thoughts on the impact of this?
It was an amazing decision, and it was probably the best gift that we could have possibly asked for during Pride Month. And the fact is that I think the Supreme Court, the majority of Americans, the majority of West Virginians realize that honest people deserve to make an honest living. And that's what this decision was all about, being able to be who you are and not have to fear discrimination in the workplace.
I think one of the most fascinating things about the decision, it was a 6-3 vote. Two Republican appointees, Neil Gorsuch and John Roberts. Gorsuch, of course, appointed by President Trump, John Roberts by President George W. Bush, joining the 4 Democrat appointees on the court in the majority decision written by Gorsuch.
Yeah, I think that was very important. And I think it also demonstrates that the Supreme Court is not immune from being influenced by public opinion. The vast majority of Americans believe that no one should be fired for who they are, who they love. Here in West Virginia, a recent poll had that number at about 60% of West Virginians, over 60% of West Virginians believe that no one should be fired based on their sexual orientation or gender identity.
When the U.S. Supreme Court upheld marriage equality a number of years ago, did that really pave the way? Would this decision have happened without that one, you think?
I don't know. It's very strange in how the turn of events took place. I think at the beginning of the LGBTQ civil rights movement, if you go back as far as Stonewall, I think people thought that we would get the non-discrimination protections in the workplace first. Because those are the basic foundations of our civil rights, to be free from discrimination in the workplace, to be free from discrimination in housing and public accommodations, which the court didn't rule on, those other two. But we never would have thought that marriage would come first. In fact, in other civil rights movements, marriage has always come later at the end. So it was like receiving the icing on the cake before the cake was ever baked.
I want to talk about, there was a push the last number of years in the legislature to have a fairness law passed in West Virginia. We have had several municipalities and cities and counties pass it, but there was an effort to have it passed statewide. Is that still going to be needed, and will we have that debate in the upcoming legislative session? And how does this change the debate?
I think it changes it by helping the debate. I mean, helping in our favor, because I think there were a number of more conservative legislators who were fearful of moving forward on this, and now that the court decision on this issue has been led by a Trump appointee and by the conservatives, I think that lends more weight to the push for a Fairness Act, which not only includes the employment protections statewide, but it would also include housing protections and protections against discrimination in public spaces, which were not included in this ruling and which are very important to our community.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that people were aware that this was an employment-only ruling, a very narrowly focused ruling. It's certainly an important one, but it does not include housing or public accommodations.
That's correct.
You touched on something, and I think it's important to reflect on this. This is Pride Month. And like everything else in the world, because of COVID-19, all the parades, the parties, the events were canceled. Your thoughts on that? I know it's disappointing, and just talk about your thoughts on that and the impact of it.
Yeah, well, these are strange times for everyone, and particularly for us, given the fact that this would be a time when we would be out in parades celebrating our victories, but also recognizing how far we still had to go, how much work is still out there for us to gain equal footing with everyone else. And the fact that that can't happen this month, I think we were disappointed, but at the same time, you couldn't have asked for better news than this U.S. Supreme Court decision. And I think a lot of these pride groups will be rescheduling their events in the fall or at a time when things look better. health-wise.
All right. We'll let people know when that happens, when those decisions are named. Real quick, your website where folks can get more information.
It's fairnesswv.org.
Fairnesswv.org. It can't be any simpler than that. We want to thank Andrew Snyder, the Executive Director from Fairness West Virginia, for joining us this week on Inside West Virginia Politics. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
We'll have more after this break. Stay with us.